Hello everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going on the fascinating journey, not to some faraway place, but deep inside something we see every single day, a plant. We're going to peel back the layers and take a look at the incredible, hidden world of its internal structure.
I mean, you see the leaves, the stems, the flowers, but have you ever really wondered what's going on inside? What's the architecture that lets them stand so tall or find water deep in the ground and turn sunlight into pure energy? Well, to figure that out, we need to look at the plant's internal blueprint. So let's dive in.
The field that answers all these questions is called plant anatomy. You can think of it as literally the blueprint for a plant. It tells us how all the different parts are built, how they're all organized, and, most importantly, how they all work together to keep the plant alive and growing.
Now, to understand any blueprint, you first have to know about the materials, right? Every plant is built from something called tissues, which are basically just groups of cells that have specific jobs. And broadly speaking, they fall into two main categories.
First, you've got meristematic tissue. This is the plant's non-stop growth engine. It's full of young cells that are constantly dividing, and you'll find them right at the tips of roots and shoots. And then you have permanent tissue. These are the mature, specialized cells. They've stopped dividing and have settled into their careers, you could say, doing specific jobs like storage, support, or transport.
Okay, but it's not quite that simple. These permanent tissues themselves branch out into two main types. You have simple tissues, which are made of just one type of cell, and complex tissues, where different cells team up to get a job done. Let's start with the simple ones.
First up is parenchyma. This is the most common and, honestly, the most versatile tissue. If you look at the picture, you'll notice the thin walls of the cells and the small spaces between them. Just think of these as the plant's all-purpose cells. They do everything from storing food to carrying out photosynthesis in the leaves.
Next up, we have collenchyma. Now, what's really interesting here are the corners of the cells. See how they're unevenly thickened? That extra thickness is what gives young, growing parts of the plant, like stems and leaf stalks, their flexible strength. It lets them bend and sway in the wind without snapping. Pretty clever, right?
And for the really heavy-duty support, plants use sclerenchyma. Now, unlike the other two, these cells are actually dead when they're mature. And they have incredibly thick, rigid walls that are hardened with a substance called lignin. You find them in two forms: long, thin fibers, and these short, gritty things called sclerids, or stone cells. They're what give nutshells their hardness and that gritty texture to fruits like pears.
So, we've seen the basic building and support materials. Now let's look at the more complex systems, the plant's internal plumbing that moves water and food all around.
The first part of this system is the xylem. Its job is simple: transport water and minerals up from the roots to the leaves. It's strictly a one-way street, going up. And interestingly, most of the cells making up the xylem are dead, forming these long, hollow tubes. These thick walls also provide a lot of structural support. In fact, the wood in a tree is mostly just secondary xylem.
And the other half of the transport system is the phloem. So if xylem is the water pipe, you can think of phloem as the food delivery service. It moves all the sugars made during photosynthesis from the leaves to other parts of the plant that need energy, like the roots or fruits or growing tips. It's a two-way system, moving food wherever it's needed the most.
Okay, so now we know the basic tissues. Let's see how they're all put together. We'll start from the ground up, with the plant's foundation, the root. And we'll compare the two major blueprints for flowering plants, dicots and monocots.
Here we've got two cross-sections, dicot root on the left, monocot on the right. Now just focus on the very center of both. See that? That's where all the plumbing is. In the dicot, notice how the xylem forms that tight, star-like shape in the core. Now compare that to the monocot, where you see a wider ring of tissues around a big, obvious center.
So, the main thing to remember for roots is this. Dicots usually have just a few xylem arms making that star shape. Monocots, on the other hand, have a lot more xylem bundles, more than 6, and they form a ring around a large central area called the pith.
All right, let's move up from the foundation to the main pillar of the plant, the stem. And when we compare dicots and monocots here, the differences become even more obvious.
Now look at these two diagrams. The difference is night and day, right? In the dicot stem on the left, notice how those circular clusters, the vascular bundles, are arranged in a perfect, neat ring. Now look over at the monocot on the right. The bundles are just scattered all over the place, kind of like chocolate chips in a cookie.
And this really shows the key difference.
Dicot stems have their vascular bundles in that perfect ring. They're also called open because they have a layer of growth tissue called cambium. That's what lets the stem get wider over time, like how a tree trunk grows. But monocot stems have scattered bundles that are closed. They don't have that cambium, which is why plants like grass or corn never really get woody.
And finally, let's move to the plant's solar panels, the leaves. Here too, the internal structure is perfectly designed for its job. And again, we see two different approaches.
So inside the leaf, the middle layer is called the mesophyll. This is the engine room for photosynthesis. Look closely at the dicot leaf on the left. You can actually see two distinct layers, a tightly packed upper layer and a looser, spongy lower layer. Now compare that to the monocot leaf on the right. The mesophyll looks much more uniform, without that clear separation.
So in a dicot leaf, that mesophyll is split into an upper palisade layer designed to capture light and a lower spongy layer designed for gas exchange. The monocot leaf is much more uniform. And this internal structure is reflected on the outside too. Dicots have those net-like veins, while monocots have veins that run in parallel lines.
So, we've journeyed all the way from the basic tissues through the roots, stems, and leaves, comparing the two major blueprints of the plant world. Let's just quickly bring it all together for a final look.
This table really sums it up nicely. For the root, just remember, fewer xylem bundles in dicots versus many in monocots. For the stem, it's the ring versus the scattered bundles. In the leaf, it's a differentiated mesophyll versus an undifferentiated one. And, at a fundamental level, dicot bundles are open, which allows for woody growth, while monocot bundles are closed.
All of this complex, hidden architecture, it exists inside every flower, every tree, and every blade of grass you see. It's an entire world of structure and function, all working in perfect harmony. So the next time you look at a simple leaf, maybe you'll see more than just a green surface. Maybe you'll see the intricate factory that's working inside.